Welcome back to News Talk. The Democratic candidates vying to succeed retiring Maryland Senator Barbara Mikulski held the first of 4 debates before the April 26th primary on Friday. WAMU Radio hosted this face-off, and this was the first time that we got to hear Representatives Chris Van Hollen and Donna Edwards go after each other, and they didn't hold back. And here to talk about the race is Josh Kurtz, a columnist at Center Maryland. Hey, Josh, good to see you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
That was some debate, right?
Yeah, it was pretty feisty, I think, more so than we expected, actually.
What do you think that testy tone was all about? I mean, the polls showed them neck and neck. Is that what it is?
I think that's what it's all about, and I think they're looking for every possible advantage, and there aren't a lot of differences between the two of them, so they're trying to highlight what few there are.
Yeah. Well, okay, Chris Van Hollen, he's got his strength in Montgomery County.
Right.
Donna Edwards, she's got her base in Prince George's County.
Right.
And with that said, it seems like both of them are now turning their attention to Baltimore.
Right.
Is that where the race is going to be determined?
It's looking increasingly that way, yes. Donna Edwards is clearly counting on a huge turnout in Baltimore City, and she's really emphasizing the fact that she's an African-American woman, and there's a mayoral election going on in Baltimore right now. The two front runners are African-American women, so there's a tie in there. Van Hollen is hoping he sort of scoops up the rest of the region.
So that would be maybe Baltimore County?
Right, Baltimore County and some of the, Howard, Anne Arundel,
yeah. Oh, talk a little bit about some of the issues that are important to Baltimore voters. Certainly the Freddie Gray case. There was another issue with the, light rail that got nixed by the governor?
Right, yeah, there was a big transportation project that the governor killed that they were really counting on to spur economic development up there. Both Edwards and Van Hollen have been very critical of that decision, as has Senator Mikulski, who actually helped secure a bunch of federal funding for it. But really, the way the two aren't addressing so many issues up there, so much as they are sort of, again, for Congresswoman Edwards, it's all about sort of identity politics and the fact that she was a single mom and, struggled financially for a while, so she's just trying to make a connection with voters. With Van Hollen, it's more about sort of, here's my record of getting things done, and hoping that resonates up there.
And we should say that a lot is at stake here, because I mean, this is to fill Barbara Mikulski's Senate seat. She has held that seat for a long
30 years,
time. Yeah. And whoever wins the Democratic primary on April 26th has a big advantage going into the fall, right?
Likely to win. Yeah. Some Republicans are spinning a scenario in which they think, particularly if it's Congresswoman Edwards, they have a chance. But the electorate is so much different in Maryland in a presidential year than it is in a gubernatorial year. 2 years ago we saw a Republican win an upset victory for governor. But yeah, the Democratic primary is where all the action is. And one of these two is, going to be out of a job. Because they're both giving up their house seats to run for this, so lots at stake.
Very good point there. Let's talk a little bit about their bios, their backgrounds. Donna Edwards, well, they're both 57 years old.
That sounds right, yeah.
Donna Edwards represents the 4th District, right? And she's been in office since 2008 as a congresswoman. And Chris Van Hollen, he represents the 8th District. He has been in Congress a little bit longer, since, 2003? Both liberal Democrats. So they don't have a lot that they disagree on as far as the big issues, right? Right.
And and Congresswoman Edwards said as much during their radio debate the other day. So again, that's why they're sort of, picking on other things.
Nibbling at each other.
I mean, Congressman Van Hollen was talking about her record of constituent service, missing a couple of meetings with Governor Hogan. She was talking about a couple of votes on trade and Social Security that may not resonate so well with liberal Democratic primary voters, but there really isn't a lot of daylight with them, and that's why sort of the things they're highlighting tend to get nastier, I think.
I guess so. He's on the House Budget Committee, right?
Right. He's the top Democrat in the House Budget Committee.
How important is that as far as experience goes and as a platform to kind of crow about during the primary.
Well, it's definitely a credential, and in general, he's been he's been part of the Democratic leadership team for a while in the House. It's a credential, but on the other hand, this is a year where insurgent candidates are doing well, where not being a part of the establishment could be key, and that's something that Dawn Edwards is highlighting.
Mm-hmm. And she, as you mentioned, she claims that she is sort of this voice for working families.
Right. Right.
And she says that, I guess she's really running. Look at me as an example.
Exactly.
Yeah. I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth.
Right.
Here I worked really hard. I was a single black mother.
Right.
I put myself through law school while I had a child.
Yeah.
She says I worked hard to achieve where I am.
Right.
I think that she's holding herself up as an example for people to say, hey, I appreciate that.
Without a doubt. And remember, there are only 20 women in the Senate, and 2 African Americans in the Senate right now, so that's got to have some appeal too.
Absolutely, and I think she's mentioning that quite a few times
sure
on
is.
the campaign trail. Now, Chris Van Hollen has described Donna Edwards as sort of not only being ineffective, but also being dishonest. What does he mean by that? Were there some votes that she was taking credit for?
Yeah, it's the ineffective thing. I think you hear that a lot from a bunch of elected officials. If this were a popularity contest among elected officials, Dawn Edwards would not win. But does that really matter to voters at large? And I'm not exactly sure what he meant by dishonest, but
that's what he's claiming.
Yeah.
As far as the ineffective part, he actually talked about during the debate that some of her constituents were actually coming to him for help because they weren't getting anywhere by going to her.
Right. That
doesn't look very good.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's certainly something you hear in the political community. Again, unless you're a voter who's tried to get some help from Donna Edwards' office, I'm not sure if that resonates, but it could.
As far as the negativity goes, so far we've heard more negatives coming from Donna Edwards' camp up until that debate on Friday.
Well, yeah, and actually, I think Van Hollen was the first to go on the attack in that debate. So that was.
Why do you think he was coming out so negative?
Well, I think he expected to be ahead, and he's not right now. I mean, he's got 10 times more money than she does. He's got a whole bunch of sort of institutional support. I think he thought he'd be ahead, and from all we can tell, it's still a toss-up.
So why is he not ahead?
Well, I think part of it is just purely demographic. I mean, any strong African-American contender was going to do well. A strong woman was going to do well, particularly when we're talking about filling Barbara Mikulski's seat. And, again, I don't think establishment support necessarily translates into victory. The one interesting thing is in the tough campaigns that Chris Van Hollen has run in and won, he's been the insurgent candidate too. This is kind of unfamiliar footing for him to have most of the party coming together on his behalf.
Polls, as we said, they have shown up to now a very close race.
Yeah.
The two are neck and neck. Until we got that one poll, it was about a week ago from the Baltimore Sun, and it showed that Donna Edwards was ahead by some 6 points.
Right.
What do you make of that poll? Is that poll out of step, or is this some new information?
Well, the poll did follow an advertising campaign that Emily's List did for her that focused on the Baltimore area, so I think it could be that as much as anything. I think it could also just be because there's a mayoral primary up there. More people in Baltimore are kind of focused on politics, so it could be a reflection of that too. I mean, I think in the end, no matter who wins, we're just talking about a couple of points either way.
Very, very tight. And as far as endorsements go, we know that Chris Van Hollen has been endorsed by the Washington Post editorial board. He also got an endorsement from Senate President Mike Miller, who said something like he was born to run or born for the job. And that's Edwards took offense at that.
Her, yes, because it was just as you said, it kind of suggested that you needed to be to the manner born to get this, and it wasn't a question of him earning the job, but that he was born for the job.
And she feels like she's earned the job.
Yeah, I don't think that's what Mike Miller meant, but it certainly came out awkwardly.
Yeah. So do you think this race ultimately is going to come down along racial lines?
I think to a great degree, but I do think, Congressman Van Hollen has support from a lot of African American officials, including the local county executives here. Donna Edwards is going to get support from white voters who like the idea of an African American woman representing them. But I do think, ultimately it could be, she could get 80% or more of the African American vote, and he'll score high among the white voters. I don't think, and that's just sort of the way it goes.
About a month to go. Josh Kurtz, columnist at Center, Maryland. Thanks so much, Josh, for being with us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And once again, that primary is coming up April the 26th. And we're back with a program note right after this.